Welcome to the Upfront Podcast, where you get your weekly dose of upfront discussions with people from all around the world. My guest today is the inspirational Rebecca Sigala. Originally from Minneapolis in Minnesota in the US, Rebecca made Aliyah in 2009 and now lives in Israel with her husband and 3 children. Rebecca is a self-employed boudoir photographer, self-love activist, and a body image and self-love coach for women. We are talking about what her own journey has led her to, what societal expectations women are facing nowadays, how we handle these, and how we can all learn to love ourselves through a process of self-acceptance.
So I am a boudoir photographer, self-love activist, and body image coach for women. I originally am from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I made Aliyah to Israel in 2009, so a few years ago now. I live in a frat with my husband, who is also my business partner, and 3 children. I have a photography studio here for my intimate portraits, which is the biggest part of my business. And I've been doing this work for about 8.5 years. It is my passion, my life's calling.
How did you first get into the field of photography? How did you discover that interest?
So how did I get into photography? That's a good question. I've always been a very creative person. When I was younger, I wanted to be an interior designer. And then before I made Aliyah, I was thinking about going to fashion school. So it's always kind of been in my mind that I wanted to do some kind of creative job. But I guess how I specifically got into photography was that shortly after our wedding, my husband was like, I want to buy a professional camera. I've always kind of loved photography and I just want to go for it. So he got some equipment and a professional camera and started going for it. And I started doing kind of the back end work of the business, like customer service, and also setting up photo shoots for him and like doing all of the back end type of things. Mm-hmm. And at some point I saw that it was so cool how he was able to communicate through photography and how photography was really like storytelling. And so as much as I loved doing the other things besides photography, at some point I was like, I kind of want to tell my story or share my perspective as well. And so he started teaching me, and we're both self-taught photographers. So we didn't go to school for it, but we just went for it. And he taught me all the technical things, but a lot of it was kind of like just playing with it and doing just, going on jobs and practicing and things like that. Like he started doing wedding photography before me. And then he would have an assistant, and then I would be like the third assistant, so that it didn't matter if I messed up, but I played around a few times like that. And then at some point I was like, I got this, let's do this. We became a husband and wife photography team, and we started getting into wedding photography, which we did for many years. We don't do that anymore, but that's kind of how we started. Yeah, I love it. It's such a incredible creative outlet, and I feel like I'm just lucky to call it my job.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it definitely sounds very interesting. So how did you get into the field of boudoir photography? Because that's sort of your specialty, right?
Yeah, that is. I don't do any other kind of photography now. As we were teaching ourselves and taking courses online and educating ourselves in photography, I came across this kind of photography called boudoir photography. And I just thought it was really cool and creative and kind of combined all the things that I love to do in terms of styling a shoot and hair and makeup and making a woman feel beautiful. It was exciting and interesting to me. So I set up a shoot, a test shoot, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the images. After the shoot, I loved the images so much that I ended up opening a Facebook page. And right away, women were coming to me and told me they want to shoot and they wanted information. And I was like, wow, there's really a need and a want for this, which was surprising to me, also living in a modern Orthodox community in Israel. I mean, obviously I was getting inquiries from all around Israel, but even in the religious world. it was something that people were really interested in. Right away, it became something that was not just fun and creative, which it is, but so deep and meaningful. I started seeing that women were changing their perspective on themselves and transforming the way that they really see their bodies through this boudoir experience. It became something that I was so passionate about because it combined something that obviously I love to do and it was really fun and exciting and creative, but also something that could really change someone's life. So yeah, I just kind of went all for it. I decided that I wanted to just create that as my only niche. And as soon as I focused on it like that, it kind of even blossomed even more. And then alongside my own journey of healing and becoming comfortable in my skin, I learned a lot of tools on how to feel more comfortable in my body and heal my relationship with my body. So I started incorporating that into the boudoir experience as well. And then a year and a half ago, I opened a body positivity course, which is a virtual course for women to heal their relationship with their bodies. And that's really a culmination of my healing journey as well as my work with women over the last decade. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, it sounds very fascinating, actually. So, your own experiences did help you in your line of work, then?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Mm.
I really feel like in some ways, like this business chose me. I'm not preaching self-love and body acceptance just because, oh, I think it's a nice idea or a cool thing, but really because it's the core struggle that I've had to deal with in my life over and over and over again. So it's like this business kind of chose me to heal myself on a really deep level and then help other people through that experience.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can you tell me what some like surprising experiences were that you had during like photo shooting sessions?
I guess it was surprising at the beginning that when you said that, it reminded me of one of the first boudoir sessions that I did. I was kind of branding myself as like a glamour boudoir photographer. So people could either choose to do boudoir photography or do something that's more like fashiony, like clothes, that kind of thing. And so this woman came to me and she's like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't think I want to get undressed, but like, let's just kind of go with it. And I remember getting to her place. I didn't have my studio at the time. Getting to her apartment, and she was so nervous that she couldn't even look at the camera. She was getting her hair and makeup done. I think it's like it's really fun and really good for pictures, but also it's just like this nice kind of transition into the vulnerable experience of being in front of a camera. So she couldn't even look into the camera at all. And I was like, I was a new boudoir photographer at that point. So that also made me nervous, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Hmm.
But I think holding that emotional space from the very beginning came pretty naturally to me. And I was able to help her feel like so comfortable with me and the situation and in her own skin that by the end of the session, she was like completely naked and like in her bedroom laughing. And she was just like, I cannot believe I'm doing this. Like, this is just so amazing. So to see that transformation within the session was really cool. And then afterwards, when she saw the pictures for the first time, she was crying and she said, I've never even felt like a woman until this day. And that was kind of that pivotal point for me. I mean, I had tears in my eyes and it was very emotional for me, but that was one of the first boudoir sessions. So that's really when I realized how powerful and transformational it could be. And then that type of thing in different ways happens all the time in my business. And that is why I love what I do.
Boudoir entails usually underwear or nude photography, or what does that usually entail?
Yeah, correct. It's like either lingerie or nudity. So it's intimate photography. For some people, like they still will wear like, they'll have like a dress or clothing or something like that. Depending on, also I work with a lot of religious women. So women who like maybe wouldn't wear like a sexy dress in public, but want to kind of explore that within this kind of realm. So I guess it's just various levels of undress, but generally it is lingerie or artistic nudity.
I guess it depends on the degree of religiousness as well. But what do you think is generally the most common motivation for women to seek you out?
So there's really so many different reasons, and women have gone through their own struggles and their own stories, which is like something that was in the beginning also just very therapeutic for me to know that like everyone really kind of has their own thing that they're going through. And unfortunately, every single woman that I've met does struggle with body image in some way, shape, or form. It's just kind of the society that is around us, and that we are affected by from a very, very young age. So even women who are confident in themselves, there are insecurities that everybody deals with and struggles with. I think that one of the main things now, especially with the way that I am marketing my business, that it can be a healing experience if women want it to. Women do want to see their bodies in a different way. They know that on some level, their body image struggles is like the way that they see their body, not necessarily that their body looks a certain way, and they want to be able to see it from a different perspective with a compassionate lens and an artistic light. So I think that's kind of like the underneath reason for a lot of sessions. But I mean, when people contact me, they have all different reasons. Like sometimes people, they want to celebrate a milestone in their life, or they want to embrace their body after pregnancy, or being postpartum. They survived cancer, or they had a mastectomy and their body changed. They want to give a gift to their partner. They want to give a gift to themselves. They want to have fun. They want to take away shame from their concept of sexuality. Like there's so many different reasons and different things that women come to me for. It's really beautiful. They're all amazing, incredible reasons. And sometimes women come to me and they say, I just want to do this. That's it. Like, it's just fun. Like, I just want this. And I think that is a totally amazing and empowering reason as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you yourself handle sort of the societal expectations that are put on you as a woman?
That's a good question.
Tricky one.
That's a tricky one. It's very broad.
Yeah.
But I think that through my business, I've been able to have this platform and this voice for kind of like shedding those expectations of society and of diet culture and of like women needing to be all the things all at once. Like there's this concept called the human giver syndrome that I think women are really challenged with, which is women feeling the need and having the pressure from society to be generous and kind and pretty and successful and all of these things all at once. We feel like the world thinks we owe it to them. And so many women are in this place where they're selfless, quote unquote, and it's seen as a good thing. But then really women are not taking care of themselves, and they're not coming from a place of like empowerment and self-love. They're just like giving all of themselves all of the time. And I think that through my platform and through helping other women, it's easier for me to kind of shed those things because I'm so passionate about them and because I'm confronted with them all the time. I definitely I use my blog, I use my Instagram, I use my Facebook as ways and places to really talk about the things I'm passionate about. I also have a Facebook group of over 3,600 women now, which is a self-love community. And we talk about all of these things like feminism and body image and societal expectations and diet culture and all of these things. And I think having a community around that is really helpful and important. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess I take it day by day and I go to therapy for myself, and I'm always trying to get further on my own healing journey and be honest with myself and be critical of kind of the things that are coming at me, not critical in a mean way, but just aware of my thoughts and Also just like the things that are coming at me, like if I feel the need that like I need to be a super mom and super successful and amazing wife and super gorgeous and thin and all of these things, like to kind of look at that and be like, is that coming from me or is that coming from society? Or, you know what I mean? Just being critical of those things and diving into them. I think it's important to just at the basic level have a self-awareness.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of it has been like, ingrained in us since childhood, right? Even subconsciously with the toys we've played with the kind of celebrities we followed and all of that. Not necessarily through our parents, but like, yeah, society at large, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for parents as well, and schools, and our religion, and yeah, like the shows that we watch, the toys that we played with, everything around us. And it's very ingrained. And I think there is actually a lot of even intergenerational trauma that we've experienced around food in our bodies. And that's really deep. And it's not something that we can just like eradicate overnight or wake up and just think completely differently. So also having compassion for ourselves and knowing that like not, we can't just like switch things overnight. But to have that self-awareness is just so helpful. Like, okay, like I'm feeling this way, and that's okay. And maybe I want to lose weight because this is what this is what I've been ingrained with, since I was 5 years old. But maybe that's not really what I need, or maybe that's not the healthiest thing for me, or, just questioning. It's so important.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not sure whether you've heard, but recently, some female celebrities lost weight, and then what feels like was the entire world commenting on it. And yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
seemed as if they had asked for like strangers' opinions. And Rebel Wilson was one of them. And she said in an interview with BBC, she said that very well, I think, that she feels like women seem to be like invisible when they're not considered to be traditionally beautiful, which I completely agree with, sadly. Why do you think women are still being objectified in this way and like critiqued solely based on their looks?
I mean, first of all, I have heard about the celebrities being commented on, which I think is such a problem in our culture, that people feel like they're just able to comment on other people's bodies, like that other people's bodies are their domain, or they have like some kind of right to like make comments or have feelings or opinions about other people's bodies, which is just like, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've heard about these a few different people recently, but it's always kind of been that way. Like in the tabloids, growing up in the 90s, like those were terrible. Why do I think that is? I mean, it's been like that since the beginning of time. I think it's really rooted in misogynistic kind of values that like women are beneath men, and certain like power plays that are happening. And I don't think that like everyone who is involved in this culture is misogynistic or bad or think women are below them. I think it's become so commonplace now and ingrained in our culture today, that even women are doing it to each other. But I do think it has very misogynistic and even racist roots. Just the idea that like one human is better than the other is something that we've had to struggle with as human beings since the beginning of time.
Of course, men and like people who identify as non-binary are as well, but I think women especially are very much usually target of that kind of bullying on a large scale, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you personally think about like the seemingly ever-changing beauty standards and the people that want to follow those standards and kind of, get those like surgeries and lose weight, gain weight, and do all those kind of different things to like meet with the current beauty standard? What do you personally think of that?
It's heartbreaking. At the same time, I have a lot of compassion and understanding. And I'm sure on some level, I'm for sure I'm a victim to it as well. I'm just another human trying to navigate this world and working on myself. It's a very human thing to want to be seen and want to be valued and appreciated. So women are wanting to, they want other people to see them in a certain way. And it's a very like in-group, out-group thing. You know what I mean? Like that's how people are. Like they want to be accepted. They want to belong. If people are making it difficult for either fat people or people of color or women or people who are in the LGBTQ community, if they're making their lives more difficult, then I think it's natural for humans to want to make their lives easier, to not have to struggle in that way. So that's why it's so amazing when people in those communities or people who are discriminated against, like stand up, or even Jews, standing up and just saying like, I'm Jewish and I'm proud. That's not an easy thing to do because the rest of the world is like, you're different, you're weird, you're bad, you're less than me, Same thing with appearance. It's this need to like want to fit in, be accepted, be seen, which is like a huge part of my work, is just like women coming to me just wanting to be seen, wanting to like me to be like reflecting back to them how incredible they are and how worthy they are just for like being them. And that's really like the transformative quality of my work. So yeah, on one hand, it's like, it's very heartbreaking and it's like, okay, like why can't we just see how worthy and beautiful and wonderful we are just the way we are? On the other hand, I think it's like, it's very much a part of human nature to like go with the crowd and do what is accepted in society. So I know that what I'm doing is kind of like against the grain, but it is possible to change your definition of beauty. And that is a big thing that I like to promote because that's what I did. Like when I started doing boudoir photography in the beginning, for sure, I grew up a certain way, like that thinner is better and we shouldn't see lines and stretch marks are not good. And then first I just started like, okay, I want to highlight all the things that I think are beautiful. And I would do that. And then as the years went on, it didn't take very long, but my definition of beauty really grew. And I started to see fat and rolls as in curves as beautiful, and stretch marks and cellulite as beautiful, and the quote unquote imperfections that women are so hard on themselves about. I was actually like, wow, I want to highlight that because I actually think that is so freaking gorgeous. And that's what makes you uniquely you. That is something that I really work on with my clients, my boudoir clients, and also my one-on-one clients, which I do body image work with, is that we have the capability. If we were taught that beauty is one thing, then we can deprogram that and we can widen our definition of beauty, because we weren't born thinking that these things were ugly. We were taught them. So we can change that. And that's really empowering.
As you mentioned before, actually, nowadays, women still kind of have to label themselves as either falling into like a category as smart or good looking, but certainly we seem to not be able to be both, according to like some usually, unfortunately, male voices. But there's also women that do subscribe or sort of follow that patriarchal belief system, which I guess has to do with like internalization. How do you feel about those like labels? You either have to fit into, being smart or good looking. You have to be kind or ambitious, but you can't be like both. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think it's bullshit. It's totally bullshit. Like women are so dynamic. Like it's so interesting because when people talk to me, they're like, oh my gosh, okay, I can't believe you photograph religious women. Like, aren't they like this? And aren't they not that sexual? And aren't they supposed to be like this and this and this? And like, it's just so not like that. Like I get to see women in their like most authentic, vulnerable state. And it's so incredible to see like how dynamic we are, how we can kind of be at these two paradoxes at the same time. They're not even paradoxes, and things are not so black and white. Like, yes, we can be kind and ambitious. We can be smart and sexy. And that is such a big part of my work, is really exploring all of these aspects with women, because that is what we do from such a young age. Is that like someone told us like that we're a certain way. Oh, your sister, she's got the looks, like you're the smart one, or you're the tomboy, or whatever label that like either your parents or your friends or society has put on you. And then we just kind of like close in our minds and our worlds, and we make them so small, and we form our identity at such a young age. And then sometimes we can't break free of that. And it doesn't just hurt society, like it hurts ourselves, because there's things that we won't explore, or there's things that we won't do. It's a limiting belief. And the idea of the limiting belief is that it actually limits us from like living our fullest, most authentic, beautiful life. It is so important to me that I help women look at these labels and boxes that we've been, like, most of us have not even put on ourselves, that they've been put on us, and say, wait a second, okay, maybe not, you know. Like, a lot of women will come to me and say like, yeah, I've always been the cute one, but like never sexy. And it's so uncomfortable for them to even think of themselves as sexy. And I'm like, why? Because no one ever told them they were. And so it's kind of like my work is really women reclaiming their sexuality and their identity for themselves.
I feel like we as women are much more emancipated, actually, like never before. And society kind of is more inclusive, but yet I feel like a lot of younger women and girls should actually feel more emancipated that way too. But they do seem to define themselves a lot through like their looks and like the outward appearance, which to me is honestly very paradox.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think with social media has a big role in that.
Yeah,
Because we're a lot
absolutely.
more like, we have a lot more rights, still not enough, but you know, we're getting there. We are a lot more emancipated. I mean, this is a female-led podcast. So,
Yay.
um, and you know, we have a voice now, we're heard. There's you know, a lot of countries who have established laws to include women to a certain percentage that have to make up, you know, political parties and
Right.
companies and so on. So
But
we
it's
are
still so small some of
very,
the time.
but I feel like younger women should be feeling much more emancipated, to express themselves freely and de-objectify themselves, but yet they're like posting like very sexy pictures online, like on social media, that sort of like
Mhm.
objectifies them again and kind of reduces them to like only like their looks.
I feel like the world of social media is like so dangerous. And from everything that my research and what I've been learning is that eating disorders and body dysmorphia and all of these things are only on the rise, especially because of these platforms that we have, where we're constantly comparing our bodies to other people. And it's such a visual thing, where we're posting pictures and filters and like these apps where like you can, you know, take out all the blemishes and like add abs and make your waist smaller and all this crazy stuff that like we didn't have growing up. And we had the tabloids, we had other things, but we weren't like bombarded with this like every single day. Like, you open your phone and then you're just comparing your body to someone else. So I think it's really, social media can be really dangerous in that way. At the same time, I see my whole journey of like body positivity and seeing women in different sized bodies, like just living their best lives and being so beautiful and just embracing their bodies as they are. That's really one of the big things that contributed to my journey. So it's like there's two sides to the coin for sure. But I do think social media plays a big role in it. It's hard, it's heartbreaking. And I think that really the only answer to it is, not the only answer, but one of the biggest answer is like really education for our children about their bodies and body image and their sexuality, and starting from a really young age. Like, I have a daughter who's 11 and a son who's 9 and a baby who's 2, and a big motivation for why I do what I do and why I'm on this journey is because I want them to feel completely comfortable in their skin. So I think a lot of that education really needs to start in the home. And even before that, we have to go on our own healing journey with our bodies in order to pass that along.
So you've mentioned your kids. How do you like specifically educate them on like body image, expectations, how to treat others and like not to judge and all that?
Yeah, well, I think in the beginning, like, I got married really young and I had my first daughter when I was 21 years old. So I was really, really young. And I had just, started my journey. And I think I struggled throughout the years. And so I've kind of started to form my opinions on like how to like properly role model and educate. The biggest thing I think is that role modeling, because so much of the trauma that we've experienced around our bodies directly is correlated to how our parents felt about theirs, and what kind of comments people were making in our families around bodies, around food, at the dinner table, at family functions, at, like what people are wearing. I know that like for me, like my family would talk a lot about like who gained weight and who lost weight, and like all the time it was so focused on that. And the stories that I hear about other people's parents and their extended family, even grandparents, aunts, uncles, all these things really contributed to how they feel about their bodies. So the only way to really like, I guess, pass that on is to really look inside ourselves and heal our relationships with our bodies first. But while I was struggling with it, I think I was like a little bit quiet about it. Like, I just didn't talk about it. I didn't want to say like, oh, I'm on a diet or I want to lose weight. I would just like not talk about it, which I actually think, even though, it wasn't completely honest, quote unquote, I think it was better at that time to not be open about that with my young children. But then as I got further along in my journey, I'm really open about it. We talk about it. Like, my daughter, who is 11, she's told me about girls who've been on diets in her class since the age of 7 or 8.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy, and it's actually very, very common. But I talk a lot about, really treating our bodies well because we love them, moving our bodies because it feels good, because it gives us energy, exercising out of self-love, not out of punishment. I don't have a scale in my house at all anymore. I really think it's important for us to also honor our hunger cues. Intuitive eating is something that I very much align with. And that is a big thing with that, is really connecting to what our bodies need, and that like we can trust our body's instincts to tell us when they're hungry, when they're full, and like listening to that, honoring that, not telling our kids like they have to finish the whole plate, or that, they can't take a second piece of cake, or whatever it is, like to really help them honor what's going on for them. And also not demonizing food, not saying food is good or bad. That is, it's like, there's this whole thing where it's like, oh, like I was so good today, or I was so bad. Like, just, all of this language around that is so embedded in our society and is very much diet culture language, needs to be looked at and then taken out of the kind of dialogue that we have with our children. So it's a lot, it's very layered. And I think having open conversations with our children is really important. And also just coming from a place of, yeah, okay, I'm not perfect. Like, that's okay. I'm on my own journey. But to educate ourselves so that we can properly give our children the best opportunity of feeling comfortable in their bodies and having less chance of eating disorders and body dysmorphia is very important.
How did you see your own body before you had kids and after?
Hmm. That's a really good question. It's like something I would ask my clients. Um, so I was definitely very critical of my body from a very young age. I was bullied in school from the age of 5 years old.
Mm.
For people called me fat. They made fun of me for being Jewish. They made fun of my looks. So I think that I always felt like I was the fat kid, even though, okay, first of all, like I don't really believe in using BMI as an indicator for health. But according to BMI, maybe I was in the overweight category and maybe not even like a very normal, healthy child. But I was really made fun of for being chubby and for being fat. That's what they called me. Looking back, I wish I could just like give that little girl a big hug and like, like really give her the support that she
Or
needed.
talk to her mom, maybe, or her
Yeah,
dad.
exactly.
Hmm.
Right. But so I think that that really led me to not have a good self-esteem, always wanting to lose weight. I started my first diet when I was in seventh grade and I lost like 20 pounds very quickly, which was a lot for me on my like small frame. And it was definitely went into like disordered eating. I never was diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I definitely was like very, very obsessive. And my whole high school and early adulthood was like yo-yo dieting all the time, counting calories and restricting myself and then binging all the time. And I thought it was just normal. It was like it's what people did. It's even how people like friends bonded. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was in so much just pain around my body and who I was. And I couldn't really like accept my body ever. I never felt like it was good enough. And then after I had kids, after I had my first two children, I was actually diagnosed with anxiety and depression. There was a couple months where like I couldn't get out of bed.
Mm.
And it was right before I started my business. I actually went to a life coach who was like a friend of mine as well. And she was like, you don't have to suffer like this. And like drove me straight to the psychiatrist. And that was kind of what started my own healing journey. And that's when I started to look at all of these factors in my life that led me to believe what I do about myself and believe what I do about my body. And so I started doing yoga. I started taking medication. I started meditating, going to healers, acupuncturists, energy healers, all of these things to kind of try to help my anxiety and depression, but also through that process, really learn to like honor and love my body. Now I have so much more compassion for my body than I ever did. I can't say that every single day I wake up and I love every aspect of my body. I think that
Mhm.
it's like totally ever evolving journey. And that is also what's very beautiful about it. Because also like when you feel like you take a step back and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I thinking this again? It kind of like brings up new things for you to think about and then kind of like go deeper on the journey. Yeah, I'm like really understanding of my body and I'm honoring of like what it wants to eat and when it wants to move and giving it more sleep and hydration and doing all these things out of really truly loving myself and knowing that I'm worthy. So I'd like to say I feel pretty good about my body now. And of course I have bad days like everyone else.
Mm, that's great. I think we should like keep remembering that like nobody's perfect. I think that's a pretty good mantra to go by.
Yeah.
And also what you said about like judging yourself, like be compassionate because actually your body is amazing because it can do so many things. But I think, yeah, people have kind of unlearned to respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such a good practice is to think like, what is my body like giving to me? What is it allowing me to do? And then you realize that you literally can't do anything without your body and like to like really go deep into like the miraculousness of what our bodies are capable of is a total game changer in the way that we see our bodies. If we can really be appreciative of what it does for us, it can really change our perspective.
So you also work as a self-love coach
Yes,
for
yes,
women specifically.
yes.
What does that usually entail?
So I have a 6-month program for one-on-one coaching. It became a entity of my business after I opened my body positivity course. And that body positivity course is like a 6-week program, and it really goes into educating people about diet culture and then going on your own personal journey of like self-awareness and reflection and intuitive eating and building a community around body positivity and learning the body positive language that I was talking about earlier and all of these different things. And then people are like, I want more. I want to go deeper. I want like that one-on-one support. It really looks different for every different woman, but the idea is when women are like ready to really ditch diet culture, they come to me and I'm like, hey, like I'll hold your hand and we'll go through this together. You know, we explore things about why they feel the way they do about their body now, like what led them up to that point, and also what we can do practically on a day-to-day basis to cultivate self-love and connection, that like embodiment that I talk about a lot. Also, it's just like a mind-body connection, because I think a lot of women, through our experiences and through our trauma, we kind of dissociate from our body. We're like, okay, like, well, I'm really smart, or I'm really cool, or like I have a great personality, but like my body's a whole nother thing, and like I either don't connect to it, or like it's bad or it's ugly or whatever. And I want women to understand that like our bodies are a part of us. Like our bodies are the vessel in which that, like, you know, we're here on this earth, and that we are doing all the amazing things that we're doing. And it holds our mind. It's all one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like embodiment work that I like to do with my clients. And we basically create short-term and long-term goals, and I help them stay accountable to themselves and really cultivate self-love.
How do you practice self-love yourself?
So I have a journaling practice that I do in the morning. It's like my gratitude journaling practice. I also meditate, which is something that has really, really helped me with that mind-body connection, and also with my anxiety, to be completely honest. But I think the biggest thing is always coming back to a place of self-compassion, like really working with my inner thoughts and understanding my inner critic, and like kind of befriending it, but being like, hey, like you can be there, but like you can't drive this car. Like you're gonna sit in the back. And coming to this place of self-compassion in every single situation. So self-love, while it can be a practice, it can be, you know, mindful eating, it can be my journaling practice in the morning, or meditation, or drinking water, like all these physical things. It's also a thought practice, and it's also a way of being that really has become a part of me and is a lifestyle. So that's really how I see it. It's very all encompassing.
If you could go back and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
I would say you are smart, and you are beautiful, and you are going to do so many incredible things in this world, and everything that you're going through now, you are going to use to help yourself and help others and change the world. And you do not need to hustle for your worthiness. You are already worthy exactly the way you are.
What do you recommend for maybe listeners or people in general that have a lack of like self-love or confidence? Is there something that they could start as a process to finding more self-love or confidence?
Well, you could contact me. That would be a good start. No, I'm just kidding. Not just kidding. You could totally contact me, and I'll give you all the information.
Do you do online sessions too?
I do. Yeah. My virtual course is completely online, and I launch it a couple times a year, but I usually have a couple spots open for one-on-one coaching. And that I do virtually, which is like through Zoom.
Oh, good. Because, you know, the listeners are actually all over the world. So I think that would come in handy.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. I would say, look at what's around you. Like, who are your friends? Who are you hanging out with? What are you reading? What are you doing on social media? What are you letting your brain intake all the time, and kind of do a little curating. Just be like, okay, this social media account like doesn't make me feel so great about myself or my body. Maybe there's nothing bad. Maybe they're not even promoting anything bad, but like for some reason it triggers you in the wrong way and it doesn't make you feel good about your body. You are allowed to unfollow them, you know, and start doing that. Start seeing if there's certain friends that talk about diets or talk a lot about bodies, and either put up a boundary with them and say, I don't want to talk about that, or maybe start seeing them a little less. Like, just start to be aware of your surroundings. I think that's one of the biggest things. Self-awareness is a really good first step. And journal about it. Like, this would be a good practice for someone. If they want to understand a little bit more about their relationship with their bodies, write a letter to your body. Like, sounds so funny, but write a love letter to your body and just write dear body and see all the different things that come out, whether it's love or anger, resentment, guilt, sadness. Just write, and write free flowing. Don't edit it. Don't show anyone it. It's just for you. And then afterwards, read through it and see what comes up. So many beautiful, wonderful, sometimes hard things will come up, but it could be the portal to a lot more understanding of who you are and how you feel about your body.
I'll definitely try that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Upfront Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any new episodes. We will be back next week.